how are the lenders protected?
Yeah,
We're getting
it's kind of a, yeah, that's right. It's kind of a two stage protection. I mean, first of all, there is the files that I use the money for. So the files where this money is dispersed are what I classify as the sort of safe files, which are quite frankly most of the files I have. And safe files are ones that have two important components. One component is that the liability is not an issue or not a serious issue. Liability is essentially fault. So if somebody's been injured and sues another party for causing that injury, they are going to get compensated for that as long as the other party is in some way at least partially at fault for what had happened. The other party doesn't have to be fully at fault. They only have to be partially at fault in order to at least get some compensation. And why that's important for disbursements is once you get some compensation, even if you're only getting a portion of it, that triggers the insurance company having to pay out the disbursements that we've paid on the claim. So the files that the money's being used on are in that category so that I know the disbursements are always going to get recouped at the end of the day, and they always have been. But there's also a second layer of protection that exists because we now have there's a product that was introduced on the market a couple of years ago, probably more than a couple of years ago now, called After the Event Insurance, which is an insurance policy that a firm can purchase. And essentially what it does is that if a claim were to fail for some reason, and the disbursements would normally be lost, the insurance company kind of comes in and pays out those disbursements to the firm to protect against those disbursements being lost. So there's a sort of a secondary, almost a safety net, that if one of those safe files fails, and they shouldn't, but if they were to fail, then the disbursements would be covered anyway. So the disbursements that are being paid on the files can't be lost in any particular way. They're either going to be recouped in the ordinary course from the insurance company that's defending the defendant in the lawsuit, or they're going to be paid by the after the event insurance policy if for some reason it's not paid by the actual insurer.
Okay, I also think no, that's good, and I also think in the contract, at least that I signed with you, you also put a personal guarantee as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously, because you're lending the money to me, and it's running through me, that obviously, if for some reason that money is not being repaid to you, that's you would be coming after me. Where is that money, so to speak? But from the actual sort of hardcore, where is the money kept, and is it going to go anywhere? It's going to be sitting in a file disbursement account somewhere, protected, either getting repaid at the end of the claim or funded by the after event insurance policy if it for some reason wasn't.
Okay. One last point I want to ask is when you mentioned, like even if they just pay part of the compensation, the full amount of disbursement they have to pay, is that the same law in both BC and Ontario?
That's a good question. I don't have enough cases in Ontario to have encountered that to know how Ontario handles that. In BC, it depends on. It's a bit complex legally, but it depends on. Generally speaking, if let's say the defendant's 25% at fault for what happened, the person only gets 25% of their claim value, but the disbursements that have been expended to prove that claim value are still 100% in BC. So that's why the disbursements get repaid back. In Ontario, I don't know, quite frankly, whether or not that same logic applies. Ontario has slightly different rules for how the costs are done, and I haven't encountered that yet in Ontario. Because quite frankly, in Ontario and Nova Scotia, I only deal with medical malpractice claims, which are a different, as we've discussed, a different ball of wax from what we do here. I don't put anybody's money on medical malpractice claims because they're risky claims. So those are the only ones I deal with in those jurisdictions.